And the next game, Mish's Magic, is even sufficient to draw with black against the then reigning and ruling world champion Garry Kimovich Kasparov in Skellefteå 1989. What did Misha play? Did he exchange queens on g2 or did he move the queen elsewhere? Of course, it must remain on the board. After exchanging queens, Kasparov's pawns, his army of pawns is winning easily. There's no salvation. This is just a sample line. White's king can come to e4 in time anyway, so passed pawns must be pushed. And now the king's coming. And yeah, f5, king f4, and this is winning in all variations. Exchanging queens loses, and Tal probably didn't calculate much here, but his intuition, of course, told him that he must keep his mighty queen. And now White's king is too open to have serious winning chances. At least I haven't found a way. But Kasparov tries very hard, and it gets very interesting. The first man is advancing. And yeah, okay. Now the bishop blocks the pawn, so there's no direct progress possible. Kasparov gives a pawn to activate his queen and A and E pawn. And it doesn't look so bad after all. Okay, first question, what about e7? This would win if Tal wouldn't have perpetual check, respectively if White's king could cross over. But when it goes to the e-file, then Tal has queen e6, check, winning the e-pawn. So, yeah, this is a direct draw. Kasparov tries queen e8 instead. But now his king is too open and cannot come out of his house on the king's side. So taking the bishop here would again be directly drawn by a typical perpetual check pattern, check on h1, d1, and the missing square of the triangles d5, and then it's a draw by perpetual, of course. To fight on, White must exchange Tal's mighty queen, making sure that White can't lose, of course. Otherwise, it wouldn't be such a good winning try, of course. But here, yeah, it is a draw. Both pawns can only be stopped at their last stop by the bishop. So the bishop can't stop them. Dvoretsky calls this trousers, like they would be torn apart. But here, of course, Tal's king can help. And here he has a typical Tal solution, h5. Taking the pawn or playing king f6. Yeah, of course, taking the pawn can be easily eliminated by a short calculation. And yeah, the bishop now is torn apart on two. The principle of one diagonal doesn't apply, which is always important for the bishop, but it's torn apart on two diagonals. And so it's over. Yeah, this is, of course, for Tal easy to see. He must have calculated this already when he played h5. Bishop c5 is obviously the only move. But okay, what now? Yeah, but even waiting with bishop e3 would be sufficient. But Tal, of course, had planned g6, and this draws easily. Then just taking back, and now the king can still stop the e-pawn as it is in the square. So it is, of course, a draw. So Kasparov played e7, but it doesn't help as Misha could construct a solid blockading setup on the dark squares. And so after king f6, a draw was agreed. A very good achievement against Kasparov, who was, of course, extremely strong in 1989. And he defeated many strong players in that area and in general, of course. And so Misha's draw was a very good achievement, and he did it in his typical style. First, he of course preserved his active queen, so that white's king is always in danger of being the subject, the object of an attack or of perpetual check patterns, and can't come out into the open easily. Exchanging queens would be a big mistake, of course. And then he again did it his way with h5, and then calculated precisely that he will always be able to construct a solid blockading defensive setup.